With the inauguration just 6 days away, Senate committees will be holding hearings this week on President-elect Trump's cabinet nominees, starting today with his pick for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And last week, in previewing the Senate agenda and key priorities, Senate Majority Leader John Thune said senators will work to ensure each nominee, quote, has a fair process without unnecessary delays or obstruction, end quote. I wonder if he told that to the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. He also said that they will confirm those nominees swiftly so that the Trump-Vance administration can hit the ground running. Well, Leader Thune himself has put together his own unofficial cabinet, which was rounded out by the recent selection of 4 GOP senators as informal advisors, his kitchen cabinet. And among them is Senator Steve Daines of Montana, who joins us now. Senator Daines, welcome back to Washington Watch, and Happy New Year.
Glad to join you, Tony.
Well, first, congratulations on being selected by the Majority Leader to be at his side to help navigate. I'm sure that has a lot to do with all of the work you did going into this election cycle. You did a great job expanding the Republican majority there in the Senate. Tell us a little bit about what you'll be doing in that role.
Well, first of all, I'm thankful that we have 2 men of faith as you look at the House and the Senate, with Speaker Johnson, a man of faith, as well as Leader Thune in the Senate, a man of faith, both very committed to pro-life policies. So it's an honor to serve now in Senator Thune, Leader Thune's kind of inner circle. The way that works is you have the elected leaders, which I served in that capacity as chairman of the NRC, elected by my peers in the last Congress. But then the leader typically asks 2, 3, or 4 senators to join his leadership team, not elected but appointed by the leader. And Senator Thune appointed me to that role. I had my first leadership meeting yesterday. I'm thankful for that. Give me a chance to continue to work with Leader Thune, as well as work with the entire Republican conference as we look at strategy, setting priorities, and getting policies through the Senate and onto the president's desk.
Well, I'm thankful that you're there, as your history on pro-life. You headed up the pro-life caucus there in the Senate, and so I'm glad you're going to be there in the inner circle, because I think we're at a point where we need a little agitation on the life issue, because some have kind of moved away from that. The party platform moved away from it, and we cannot abandon the unborn, and I think you share that view.
Absolutely, Tony. There's got to be a voice here for those who do not have a voice, and that's the unborn. I like using the word preborn. In fact, we have 6 grandchildren now, Tony, believe it or not. I'm a grandpa. Our youngest daughter, Caroline, is pregnant with our 7th grandbaby. We're very thankful. And I think every time you go through a pregnancy, as you look at the technology we have, the insights we have into the womb, the amazing, amazing miracle of life from the point of conception. And we've got to be the voice for those little babies that do not have a voice in Congress. That's our job.
And you're not just being a voice, you're also taking steps to do that. Yesterday, you led a resolution supporting the Geneva Consensus Declaration. That goes back to the previous Trump administration that Secretary Pompeo and others worked on. Talk a little bit about that and why that's important.
Really important, Tony. I think it's one of the more underreported stories and policy items we have here in Washington. And I credit Mike Pompeo, when he was Secretary of State in President Trump's first term, for leading the charge there to get countries around the world the Geneva Consensus Declaration that basically affirms life and marriage. The irony is that we've seen this movement grow. We're up to now 39 countries. We were once upon a time a signatory on the Geneva Consensus Declaration until President Biden took office. He removed the United States, while at the same time more countries around the world were added to it. Frankly, it's an embarrassment to our country to think that President Biden took us off that important group of 39 countries. Under President Trump's leadership, and I've already talked this with soon-to-be confirmed Senator Marco Rubio to be Secretary of State Marco Rubio. I've chatted with Marco about that we would get the United States back on the Geneva Consensus Declaration and be one of the early acts that President Trump makes, make us the 40th country.
Now, that was also led by the Department of Health and Human Services, the two together working with the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Are we going to have that same type of support domestically within our Department of Health and Human Services?
You know, I had that conversation directly with the nominee, RFK Jr. He was here in my office, literally about 25 feet from where I'm speaking to you, Tony. And we had a very robust discussion. In fact, talking about the importance of protecting the pro-life policies in terms of regulations coming out of HHS, but importantly, restoring any policies that the Biden administration has stripped, and to make sure that, as you said, working with the Secretary of State, the Secretary of HHS, we are doing all we can within the executive branch to make sure these protections are in place and, frankly, expanded. And he's told me that he'll have 7 direct reports, 7 report to HHS. They would be pro-life type of leaders. And I appreciate that honesty and frankness from RFK Jr.
Is it your expectation, Senator, that where the last Trump administration left off when it came to the life issue, religious freedom issue, and that involves several departments, not just the White House itself proper, but the entire federal government at a execution level, do you anticipate them returning to that, being that where they left off, kind of being a benchmark of where they start going forward?
Well, I think I do, and it's something that we need to continue to engage as members of Congress. And as you know, Tony, our success that we had in 2024 in the United States Senate by going from just 49 Republican senators to now 53, reclaiming that majority, so important. That was the fruit of our labor of working closely with President Trump as a candidate. Very popular. Of course, his success led to our success of making sure we had senators running in these races that were pro-life, could work with President Trump supported, and could win. And that's exactly what we saw happen. And now we have this new majority that puts us in a strong position to keep working within the Trump administration to make sure life protections are not only protected, but also advanced.
Well, and we're going to have that conversation with you and others, and we'll make sure that that issue does not get lost in the shuffle of the many issues and challenges that lie before us. Senator Steve Daines, always great to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Tony.